What up, everybody? Guess I'll just leave it right there. How's it going? Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. Just wanted to, I don't know, just kind of chit chat a little bit and just go over why I chose to live in Hotel Honda versus other options that were available to me. First off, I have lived a traditional life my entire life, like most people have. And it hasn't been easy by any stretch of the imagination. It hasn't always been smooth sailing, and it hasn't always been um, enjoyable. In my 20s, I actually ended up homeless twice. I was living in Minnesota. One, I ended up out of a job, and I put my deposit down on a new apartment. The apartment I was living in was awful, absolutely awful. So I put my deposit down on another place, messed around, lost my job, didn't get another one quick enough. So now I was out of my deposit money because they would not refund me, and I'm out of two places to live. And in Minnesota, I know pretty much everybody. Not everyone in Minnesota, but everyone I know is in Minnesota pretty much. All of my long-term relationships, as far as friendships, are in Minnesota. But could I stay with any of them? No. So, and I don't mean could as in like the reason why I wouldn't. No, I mean like I couldn't. No one would let me stay with them. So I ended up going to a shelter, and it was a co-ed shelter. It was one of the nicer ones because they had lockers and you can keep your stuff there. So, you can come and go and you can just lock your stuff up in the locker. As long as you're there every day, like that bed, that's your bed. So I did that. That was in my 20s. After that, I moved back to St. Louis, my hometown, for about 8 years. Moved back to Minnesota in 2005. And actually, that was the apartment that the most recent time I was homeless. In my 20s, it was just, I don't even want to go back down that road. So anyway, when I ended up putting the deposit and doing all that, that was when I was 31, when I had just moved back to Minnesota. So I ended up meeting my ex-husband before all that happened. I was working, I had my place. And during the course of us dating is when I lost my place and I was back in the shelter. And I was so embarrassed and I didn't want him to know. And he ended up finding out, or I ended up telling him. And he said something to me. My ex-husband is West African. Both of my exes are West African. So he said something to me that just stuck with me. And I'm hearing it now more and more from Americans, African Americans. And he said, that's not a big deal. One day you have it, the next day you don't. That's just how it is in this country. And like he said, he was like, I could never be homeless in my country. Ever. Like that just wouldn't ever happen. And I can dig that. But in this country, we really don't have any type of connections. People, everyone may have someone in their, not everyone, but most people or some people may have someone in their life that they can stay with or that would help them out, that wouldn't want anything in return. And so when time came and I moved here, and kind of ended up homeless because I moved here just spur of the moment. It was just very abrupt, but it was the right thing to do because an opportunity had opened for me to get out of Minnesota, and I had to. Not for trouble or drama, but just 20 years prior in my 20s, I had an opportunity to leave when I could have still had my family with me and everything would have been nice, and I didn't take that opportunity. So now 20 years later, when a door opened for me to leave, baby, I was on it. I was out of there. So then I get here, and I start thinking, I was still in the frame of mind, the traditional living state of mind. So I'm looking for an apartment, I'm doing all that stuff. And it was just weird here. Like, the rent here is whatever the rent is plus tax, which I've never heard that before. The rent fluctuates day to day, month to month. Once you're in a lease, it's like that. But you'll go look at a place and it'll be $585, and they'll tell you like next week it may be different. And then the rates go up for a snowbird season. Like a 1-bedroom that could be $550 in the summer would be $1,200 in the winter. So, because the snowbirds come here, so they amp up the damn rent. So I was like, okay, let me explore my options. I'm like, Shalonda, you don't have, excuse me, y'all, you don't have any kids. My kids are all grown, fully grown, in their mid-20s. And I just didn't have a reason to keep living traditionally. So I rented a room. I started looking for rooms to rent. Because again, I was in the air on if I was going to stay here, how long I was going to stay, and all that stuff. And I just didn't want to put my name on the lease. So I rented a room. I was there for probably about 3 months, and that just wasn't working out. So then once I ended up homeless from that. Now, before I actually left, I was looking for other rooms to rent. So I went through that, and I went and looked at them and met with the people, and they were all guys, and every single one of them in one way, shape, or the other was trying to fuck me. And I'm just like, I can't. I just want a fucking place to stay. So then I started looking at shelters. I was talking to one of my elder cousins, and then I started looking at shelters, and I'm like, I don't want to do that again, because I feel like I'm not in that same position. Everything now that I'm doing is choices, whereas in my 20s, and even when I was 30, I still was so deeply into that frame of mind of you gotta have a land apartment, and just a regular job, and just do the regular shit that everyone else does in this country. So I'm like, I don't want to be in no fucking shelter, because for one, I don't need the restrictions, and I just don't want to be in a shelter. That, for me, that option was quickly off the table. Quickly. And the rooms weren't working out. And so then I'm just like, let me see about living in my car. And that's when I started researching that. And when I moved, let me backtrack a little bit. When I moved from Minnesota, one of my girlfriends was with me. She had actually left Arizona, drove to Minnesota for my niece, her goddaughter. And she's not my biological niece, and I don't even fuck with them no more. That was 20 years down the drain. So anyway, and she ended up with me, and I didn't even know she was coming, to Minnesota. So I happened to see her the day she landed, and so she ended up staying at my place with me. And she used to constantly say, and she's a couch surfer, right? She's done with the whole traditional living as well, but she couch surfs. And she was just like, you got to get light. You got to get light. But I was still in the frame of mind of, even when I go to Arizona, I'm going to get an apartment, and just continue living the traditional lifestyle. So as the turn of events happened to where then I decided to live in my car, I'm looking at all the shit I have. I had a laptop. I had an all-in-one computer. I had a big-ass duffel bag that took up the entire back seat, except for a little portion over here. And then I had that big ass cooler that when I started this journey, you guys may have seen. So then I had that, and I probably should have kept that for my damn toilet. Anyway, it was just way too big. So I'm looking at all the shit I have. So then I got on YouTube and I started searching living out of a car, living in a car, people living in a car. And I'm like, the first one I found was a woman who now she's in a van, her and her boyfriend. But when I first encountered her channel, she was still in her car. And I think she had been 1 year living in her car. So I started searching for other people. And I'm seeing more and more, and I'm seeing more and more women that are doing it. And I was just like, that is definitely an option that is appealing to me. So I went with it. And then as I'm in here, I started realizing that all the shit I had was stressing me out. Just like when I lived a traditional lifestyle. At one point, like I've said before, at one point I had over 150 pair of shoes. I had more than 60 pair of jeans. I loved the way my closet looked. And this was when I was in St. Louis. This was during the 8 years I moved back home, where you get a lot more space. I had this humongous 2-bedroom apartment, and I only paid $550 for it, which isn't abnormal for St. Louis. It was huge when I tell you. So there, and my closet wasn't even in the bedroom. I had the hall closet. That's how much shit I had. That is, and it was ridiculous. Like, my closet was a tour by itself. I'm not even joking. And I'm not bragging either, because it was stressful, We don't think about it, but when you go to get dressed and you're looking at all this shit and you're just overwhelmed. And you're like, fuck, what am I going to wear? Sometimes it's easier to just go and buy an outfit, right? Because you can just pick out your outfit. And it's not as fun shopping through your own closet of shit that you've been looking at. So I'm in my car, and all the excess shit that I had that I can't even use was stressing me out. And I'm like, this isn't what I want. This isn't how I want to live. And this isn't even why I chose to live out of my car. I'm trying to alleviate stress from my life. I'm trying to eliminate excess things, excess baggage. So as I'm going on this journey in Hotel Honda, and the more things I get rid of, I'm telling you, the lighter my heart becomes. The easier it becomes for me to breathe. And I sleep even better at night. So yesterday, I sold this woman 12 of my MAC pigments. And I gave her 3 of my Napoleon Perdue pigments, which are also expensive. So, and I gave her that just because I just want it gone. I'd rather see it gone. And for me, I'm starting to recognize that being minimal is definitely the way to go for me. And that is also why I don't want 2 separate things. At this point, I don't. Like I said, maybe in another 20 years, I will want to be more stable and get a tiny home. I would still have it on wheels because I still want to be able to pack up and go. Or just, start my vehicle and go. But for right now, for me, having less is much more. For me, even the thought, as I've been kind of going over and pondering different options, the thought of buying another car, because you guys know I can't keep Hotel Honda forever. But buying another car and then having a trailer or a hitch or a tiny home onto it, that's too much. It's too much for me. I really want to get light. Because I love the fact that I'm able to now just enjoy life and enjoy nature. The older I get, the more I want to immerse myself in nature, in the beauty of this world that we live in. All this stuff, for me, it blocks what is really important. And to me, what's really important is when I'm able to enjoy hearing the birds chirp, being able to lounge in my car, and it's got to be like 11 o'clock, and I've been up for 5 hours. And I'm sure Robert's like, what is she doing? I'm enjoying my silence. I'm enjoying the solitude. I'm enjoying the trees right here that I see. I'm just enjoying my space. There's times when you're in your apartment and you don't leave all day. You just want to relax and be home and be left alone. Well, that's how I feel right now, And I love it. So for me, Hotel Honda, it was a choice that I quickly fell in love with. And each day I enjoy it more and more and more. And I can't imagine living any other way. And I also I don't feel the same loneliness as I felt being in Minnesota, being in an apartment. Because having all that space, even in a 1-bedroom, having all that space, I always wanted someone else there with me. Having a big full kitchen and no one to cook for. I love to cook, and I'm an excellent cook, by the way. Trust and believe. I love to cook, but not for myself. Like, I just make little small quick dishes for myself. I can just, throw together something from scratch, eat that, just make enough for like 2 helpings, maybe 2.5, 3, but not a bunch of shit. But I love cooking for people. And when I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment and no one else is there but me, it's lonely for me. Being in Hotel Honda, I don't even want anybody else here. And being in Arizona where I don't know anyone, I don't feel lonely because I don't have a bunch of people that I've known for 30 years that I can't call on for anything. So downsizing my life in every single way, the people in it, the things in it, for me, it's been a huge stress relief, a huge stress relief. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way. My lupus is thankful for it. The shingles is thankful for it. My immune system that is damn near non-existent is thankful for it. So Hotel Honda for me is stress-free living, and being minimal is stress-free, and downsizing my entire life is stress-free. Now I can focus on what's important, which is growing my business, enjoying the beauty of this earth that we live on. So that's it. So I hope somebody found this helpful, and I appreciate you guys as always, and I will chat with y'all later. Peace.